Hi, Bill here. I'd like to talk about opening traps that don't involve the king. So we'll start off with some nets or trap pieces. So here, this is the famous Noah's Ark trap where the pawns trap the bishop. So white attacks the bishop with the pawn, bishop retreats, and the pawn moves up and the bishop is trapped. So any of the four bishops can potentially be trapped like this. So this time, bishop's trapped in a different way. Pawn moves forward, defended by the rook. Bishop has no squares. And this is similar. This time it's the black's king bishop that gets trapped. Pawn moves forward and the bishop is trapped. And this time pawns trap the bishop. Pawn attacks bishop, trapping the bishop. And slightly unusual, pawn gets all the way to the 6th rank, trapping the bishop. Now we have the knight on the edge of the board. They say the knight is dim on the rim. So this knight has no safe squares. They're all controlled by white. So in those cases, if you can attack a knight with a pawn, the knight will be in trouble. And white gains material. So it's a slightly different one. The knight's right in the centre, but the knight has no backwards moves, which is often a clue that the piece can be trapped. In fact, it has no safe moves at all. So the pawn moves up and picks off the knight. So here we've got a bit of a soft spot here. If the knight gets to here, it attacks the rook in the corner. If the knight gets to f7, it attacks the other rook. So the knight moves in, driving the bishop into the line of the white bishop. So white can do a discovered attack with the knight and win a pawn. The bishop takes the knight, the bishop takes the rook. So this time, black has a rook in the corner. At the start of the game, the rooks are the only pieces that are undefended, and because the b pawn is missing, the rook is vulnerable to attack on the diagonal. So white moves his queen up. And it turns out there's no way black can safely block on the diagonal. He's got a few ways to unsafely block, so white gains material. Now we've got troubles on the diagonal again. So this knight is loose, this rook is loose, this bishop's lined up, pawn moves out of the way, and both knights are under attack. So white gains material. This knight can't take the pawn because black loses the rook. So now we've got the black pawn has just moved forward to attack the bishop. So the knight sacrifices itself, and the bishop moves in. It turns out this rook is trapped in the corner. Though in this case the knight could move and it's about an even exchange of material. I have to put a bishop there, I think. Okay, next one. So this queen's a bit short of squares. So the knight takes the pawn, pawn takes the knight, and bingo, we have trapped the queen. Sometimes queen on d8 can be won by attacking it from the c7 square of a bishop or pawn. So we've looked at ways of trapping the bishop, the knight. Now we'll look in some ways of trapping the queen. So, looks like this knight's gone backwards for some reason. This queen is undefended. Knight moves in. This pawn is pinned to the knight by the queen. And it turns out the queen has no safe squares. So the pawn takes the knight, queen takes the queen. So again we've got the situation where the knight can trap the queen. Knight moves in and the queen is lost. And this is a bit of a surprising one. If black has no black squared bishop, which you can get to here, there's no knight to get to here, there's no pawn that can move to here, the bishop can move up and win the queen. And white's got quite a few pieces. Sometimes you need quite a few pieces to trap a queen. So the bishop moves up, and it turns out that the poor old black queen has no safe squares. And a bit like the earlier one, the bishop moves in and wins the queen. This time the pawn traps the queen. Pawn moves forward, winning the queen. And this It's an interesting one. I originally saw this in a game. The players later became international master, Sire Wakadala, I think his name was. Okay, so the bishop moves in, attacking the queen. The queen has only one square. And now the knight and bishop cooperate to trap the black queen. So now I've got a situation where the queen is on an open file, but the queen cannot move sideways or diagonally. So the rook attacks the queen. It turns out that there's no good move for black, so he's got to save the queen, he's got to put the bishop in the way and lose the bishop. Okay, now I've got queens on the edge. It's always a danger when a piece has no retreat and it's not on the back rank. It's in more danger of being trapped. So the knight moves, and it turns out the black queen has no way to escape. So looks like in this position black has captured the knight's pawn. They sometimes call that the poison pawn. And it turns out that after the knight moves, there's no squares at all. It's important this pawn was here to guard the square, so none of these squares are safe for the queen, and the queen is lost. So now we've got a funny situation. So what happens? The knight moves in, attacking the rook, which is trapped in the corner. So it's not much point. If you take with the knight, white's won the exchange. If you take with the queen, surprisingly, the queen is trapped. Okay, so now this variation of an earlier one we did. Bishop traps the queen, the pawn can take it, but what white does when he takes back, he hits the queen and the rook, provided this rook can't take this rook with check. This queen cannot move and defend the rook. So what happens is, when the queen moves, white will win the rook, and white has won the exchange and the pawn. And that's the end of the section. So that was just an introduction to some opening traps, not the full positions, but it shows some of the themes. So thank you for watching.